Usually when we talk about a major medical breakthrough,
Mm-hmm.
there is this expectation of just pure, uncomplicated salvation.
Right, like a magic bullet.
Exactly. I mean, think about discovering penicillin. You get a terrible infection, you take the medicine, the bacteria dies, and, well, you just go on with your life.
Yeah, sick, then cured.
Yeah.
The human brain really craves that kind of binary resolution.
It's a clean narrative,
Yeah.
a problem definitively solved. But what if the biggest weight loss miracle of our generation isn't a one-and-done cure at all?
Right.
What if, according to some very controversial new information we're going to look at, it is actually a biological trap?
Which completely upends how we typically view pharmaceutical interventions. I mean, if a treatment creates a permanent dependency by fundamentally altering the body's structural foundation.
Then we aren't talking about a cure anymore.
Exactly. We are talking about a subscription model for human physiology.
So today, our deep dive is venturing into some incredibly turbulent waters. We are looking at a highly explosive classified dossier. It's dated March 15th, 2026.
Fresh off the press, really.
Yeah, and it was intercepted and released by an underground broadcast group. They call themselves the Static Bypass Network.
Specifically, I think it's two figures operating under the names Apo and Luminova.
Right, Apo and Luminova. And the document itself is titled the GLP-1 Muscle Atrophy Cover-Up.
And just for context for the listener, this is a dense 400-page encrypted cache of heavily redacted Phase 3 clinical trial data.
Huge document.
Massive. And it focuses entirely on the world's most popular weight loss injections, the GLP-1 agonists. I mean, these drugs have practically become a cultural phenomenon over the last few years.
Oh, absolutely. They've completely reshaped the diet industry. But look, before we go a single step further, we need to set some very strict boundaries for you, the listener.
Yeah, this is crucial.
This dossier contains massive conspiratorial claims. Among them is the allegation that mainstream networks like CNN, FOX, and MSNBC are currently under strict gag orders.
Right, and the reason given in the leak is that over 60% of their ad revenue comes from Big Pharma.
Which is a staggering accusation regarding the flow of information in modern media. It suggests a total blackout on any negative press regarding these drugs.
It's a heavy claim.
It is. And we need to make it explicitly clear right now, we are not taking sides here.
No. Not at all.
We are not endorsing these claims against pharmaceutical companies or the media. Our mission for this deep dive is strictly impartial.
We are just serving as your guides to unpack and analyze the ideas contained within this leaked FDA whistleblower document.
Exactly. We want you to understand the biology and the economics being alleged here, so you can understand the controversy for yourself.
Because knowledge is most valuable when you can actually understand and apply it. Our goal is to critically examine the mechanics of what this whistleblower is claiming.
Right, without declaring the dossier as absolute, verified truth.
Exactly. We're looking at the how and the why of the arguments presented in the text.
So let's start with the baseline reality before we even get into the conspiracy stuff. For anyone who isn't, fully immersed in the science, what actually is a GLP-1 agonist?
Good place to start.
Because the public was sold this idea of a simple, weekly injection that effortlessly melts fat, how is it supposedly working in a normal scenario?
Well, GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1.
Oh.
It is a hormone naturally produced in your gut when you eat. It does a few things, but primarily it signals your pancreas to release insulin, and it severely slows down gastric emptying.
Meaning food just stays in your stomach longer.
Exactly. And because of that, it sends a massive, undeniable signal to your brain's hunger center that you are completely full.
So you inject a synthetic, supercharged version of this hormone, and your brain essentially thinks you just ate a massive Thanksgiving dinner 24/7.
Correct. You enter a severe caloric deficit simply because you have a zero desire to eat.
Wow. Okay, so that brings us to the core biological claim in this dossier. The leak alleges a horrifying engineered side effect to this forced starvation.
Yes, this is where it gets dark.
It claims these GLP-1 agonists don't just suppress your appetite, they trigger something called cellular apoptosis in skeletal muscle tissue.
Right.
Break that down for us. What is the actual mechanism there?
So, apoptosis is a biological term for programmed cell death.
Like a self-destruct sequence.
Basically, yeah. Think of it as a cellular self-destruct sequence. It's normally a natural, highly regulated process when your body clears out old, mutated, or damaged cells to make way for new ones.
Which is a good thing, normally.
Normally, yes. But the dossier alleges that these drugs chemically alter the signaling pathways to artificially trigger this self-destruct sequence, specifically within healthy skeletal muscle tissue.
Wait, but I mean, if you were eating, say, 800 calories a day because the drug killed your appetite, of course you're going to lose some muscle.
That's the common assumption, sure.
That's just basic diet mechanics, right?
Yeah.
If you starve, your body burns whatever it can find. Why is the dossier calling this an engineered trap rather than just a natural consequence of eating less?
Well, that is the critical distinction the whistleblower makes. Typically, a body in a caloric deficit will prioritize burning fat stores first.
Because that's what fat is for, right? It's stored energy.
Exactly. And the body will try to spare lean muscle mass until absolutely necessary. But the dossier claims the suppressed phase 3 trial data showed the exact opposite.
The opposite.
Yeah, it alleges the drug causes an inverted ratio, chemically forcing the body to cannibalize its own muscle tissue prematurely to survive the caloric deficit.
So it's effectively bypassing the fat stores in the early stages.
According to the leak, yes.
That is wild. And the suppressed data claims that up to 45% of the weight patients lose on these drugs is actually vital lean muscle tissue, not fat. 45%.
Medically speaking, that represents highly accelerated sarcopenia.
Sarcopenia. Okay, what is that?
It's the involuntary loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength. It typically happens very slowly as we age, over decades.
Like when older people get frail.
Exactly. But this dossier alleges it is happening in a matter of months.
I'm just trying to visualize what a 45% loss of muscle actually means for a human body. It's like, imagine you're in a survival situation in a freezing house in the middle of winter.
Okay.
You need heat, so you start tearing down the load-bearing wood framing of your own home to feed the fireplace.
That's a really good analogy.
I mean, yes, technically the overall weight of the house is getting lighter, the scale's going down, but you are actively destroying the structural integrity of your home just to keep the fire going.
And tearing down that framing means a loss of your body's most critical endocrine organ.
Muscle is an organ.
Oh, absolutely. Muscle isn't just for lifting heavy objects. It regulates your blood sugar, it acts as a sink to store glycogen, and most importantly, it drives your basal metabolic rate.
Meaning it burns calories just by being there.
Right. It is the engine that dictates how much energy your body burns just keeping the lights on.
But wait, if phase 3 trials genuinely showed people losing half their muscle mass, how does that not halt the trial instantly?
You would think it would.
I mean, a 45% muscle drop isn't a rounding error. You don't just accidentally miss that. If you are a pharmaceutical company and your drug is destroying the foundation of a patient's house, why wouldn't you try to fix it?
Well, the leak provides an answer to that, revealing an internal motive they refer to as Project Eternal Patient.
Project Eternal Patient.
Yeah. The dossier lays out the deeply cynical biological math behind ignoring the muscle loss.
Let me see if I can piece this math together. So if my skeletal muscle is my metabolic engine and it burns calories just by existing, whereas fat tissue does not field, then losing my foundational muscle mass means my baseline metabolic rate completely collapses.
You've got it.
I'm fundamentally burning far fewer calories at rest than I did before I started the drug.
Because the engine is gone, your daily caloric expenditure just plummets.
So what happens when a patient hits their goal weight and decides to stop taking this, $1,200 a month injection?
The artificial fullness disappears, their appetite returns to normal, but their metabolic engine is essentially destroyed. And the dossier alleges that this biological state causes a massive rebound effect. Because there is practically no muscle left to burn incoming calories, the body begins storing fat at double the previous rate.
Which means the weight piles back on almost instantly, and they have to go right back on the drug to stop it.
According to the leak, yes. The patient becomes permanently dependent on the injection just to maintain a baseline.
Oh.
The text explicitly claims the goal was never to cure obesity, but to engineer a society of, quote, metabolically crippled, lifelong subscribers.
Okay, but calling it Project Eternal Patient sounds almost like a comic book villain.
Right.
Is it really a deliberate, orchestrated project?
That's a big question.
Or is this just the unfortunate biological reality of rapid weight loss that the pharmaceutical companies simply chose to ignore because the drug was selling so well? I mean, there is a massive difference between a known side effect and a bioweapon.
That is the exact tension at the heart of the dossier. The whistleblower argues it crosses the line into intentionality because of how the data was allegedly handled.
Yeah.
They didn't just ignore it. The claim is they actively suppressed the trial data showing the sarcopenia to get FDA approval, knowing full well that the resulting metabolic collapse would lock patients into a lifetime subscription.
I have to ask about the human element here, though. I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone taking this. If a patient is losing that much vital muscle mass, wouldn't they physically feel terrible?
You would think so, right?
Like lethargic, weak, exhausted. Is the psychological thrill of watching the scale go down temporarily masking the physical reality that they are becoming profoundly weaker?
The dossier outlines that exact psychological trap. We live in a society hyperfixated on the gravitational pull of our bodies, the number on the scale.
Right, it's all about that number.
When that number drops rapidly, the dopamine hit is immense. You receive constant societal validation, your clothes fit differently, you feel a massive sense of success.
So you just ignore the warning signs.
Exactly. This euphoria absolutely masks the physical symptoms of sarcopenia in the short term. You might feel incredibly weak walking up a flight of stairs, but you attribute it to just eating less or the natural effort of losing weight.
Not realizing your biological foundation is eroding.
Precisely.
But if the muscle is melting away, the consequences can't just be limited to metabolism. The body is a connected system.
It is.
And the leak addresses this directly. Page 87 of the dossier dives into something they call the fragility factor.
Yes, the cascading collateral damage. This is where the physiological reality of muscle loss becomes structurally dangerous for the rest of the body.
Right, because the dossier details how the melting away of muscle removes structural support for the bones. And the suppressed data allegedly showed a massive spike in early-onset osteoporosis and microfractures in adults under 40.
Which is highly unusual.
I want to talk about how that actually works, but first, the leak includes an internal quote from big pharma executives regarding this bone density issue that is frankly chilling.
It really is.
They allegedly referred to this spike in bone density failure as, quote, an acceptable collateral revenue stream, end quote.
Just let that sink in.
Knowing these patients would soon need bone density medications, which, by the way, these same pharmaceutical companies also manufacture.
If we buy into the premise of this document, that quote represents an astonishing level of calculated cynicism.
It's disgusting.
It reduces patient health to an endless cycle of engineered ailments and proprietary treatments.
But is it possible they just noticed the bone density issue late in the game and thought, well, we happen to make a drug for that too, how convenient, rather than engineering it on purpose?
The whistleblower argues the mechanism is too fundamental to human biology to be an oversight. The relationship between skeletal muscle and bone density is profound. It operates on a physiological principle known as mechanical loading.
Break down mechanical loading for us. What does that mean?
So bones are living tissue, right? They
Yeah.
constantly remodel themselves based on the stress placed upon them. You have cells called osteoblasts that build bone and osteoclasts that break it down.
Okay. Builders and breakers.
Exactly. When you have healthy, strong muscles pulling against your bones during everyday movement, that tension creates microstress.
Which sounds bad, but it's good.
It's very good. It signals the osteoblasts to rush in and increase bone density to handle the load.
So it's like poured concrete. The muscle is the rebar inside the concrete. The tension of the rebar gives the concrete its strength.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
If you remove the rebar, the concrete simply crumbles under its own weight over time.
Exactly. Without the tension of the muscle pulling on the bone, the body assumes it no longer needs thick, dense bones. The signaling stops, and the bone begins to resorb.
Wow.
To see a sudden spike in microfractures and early onset osteoporosis in a demographic under 40 years old is an alarming anomaly. Bone density typically doesn't become a critical issue until postmenopause or late into the senior years.
Engineering this fragility into young adults really highlights the deeply interconnected nature of human biology. You cannot pull one thread, like radically altering digestion and appetite, without unraveling another part of the system.
It demonstrates that biological interventions rarely exist in a vacuum. Every action has a reaction.
Which brings us to a fascinating pivot in the dossier. Because the document doesn't just outline the harm, it details the suppressed solution.
Yes, the alternative.
It outlines an alternative that independent researchers reportedly discovered during these very same clinical trials and why it was allegedly buried deep underground. Let's transition to the berberine protocol.
This is a crucial part of the leak. Independent clinical researchers noted that a specific, high-purity natural compound called berberine hydrochloride could achieve a similar metabolic reset and insulin regulation as the GLP-1 injections.
but without the muscle loss.
Exactly. That is the key differentiator. It did it without triggering the cellular apoptosis in the muscle. The researchers literally referred to high-purity berberine as nature's Ozempic.
Berberine is a natural alkaloid found in plants, right? Like golden seal or barberry.
Correct. It's derived from plants.
How does a plant extract manage to do what a synthetic billion-dollar peptide does, but without destroying the muscle?
It comes down to the mechanism of action. According to the leak, berberine doesn't just indiscriminately starve the body by paralyzing the stomach.
Okay.
Instead, it acts as a highly specific metabolic switch by activating an enzyme called AMPK.
Okay, the dossier calls AMPK the body's master metabolic regulator. How does that fuel gauge actually work? Like, how does a cell know when it's starving versus when it's well-fed?
Well, AMPK stands for AMP-activated protein kinase. It monitors the ratio of energy molecules in your cells.
Okay, keeping tabs on the fuel.
Specifically, the ratio of ATP, which is cellular energy, to AMP, which is what's left over when the energy is used up. When cellular energy gets low, that ratio flips and AMPK switches on.
And what happens when it switches on?
It tells the body to stop storing fat, upregulate fatty acid oxidation, and start burning visceral fat for energy. It pulls sugar out of your blood and pushes it into your cells to be used as fuel.
But if it's burning fuel, why does it spare the muscle? I mean, why doesn't it just burn everything?
Because AMPK is a natural evolutionary survival mechanism. It specifically inhibits the breakdown of proteins.
Oh, wow.
It knows that burning muscle for energy is a biological last resort. So it targets the visceral fat, the dangerous fat around your organs, while leaving the structural framing of your house entirely intact.
It targets the fat but keeps the muscle. So, I mean, if this natural compound activates the master switch, why isn't it the standard of care?
That is the million-dollar question.
The dossier claims this berberine compound was intensely studied, validated, and then actively buried. Why would they do that?
Because berberine is a naturally occurring alkaloid, and under current intellectual property laws, you cannot patent a naturally occurring compound.
Meaning you can't charge $1,200 a month for it.
Precisely. That is the fundamental rule of pharmaceutical economics. If you cannot secure a patent, you cannot secure a monopoly.
It's like, imagine some brilliant coder releases an open source piece of software completely for free.
Right.
And it effortlessly does everything a $1,200 a month enterprise software does, but without constantly crashing your computer's hard drive.
Exactly.
Naturally, the massive tech giant selling the expensive enterprise software is going to panic. They can't patent the open source code, so they will do whatever it takes to bury the free alternative, discredit the coder, and hide the software from the search results.
That's a great way to put it. And according to the leak, that is exactly what the pharmaceutical cartel did. They allegedly launched a shadow campaign to discredit berberine, defund the independent researchers, and bury the data.
Just to protect their monopoly.
If we look at this through the lens of critical thinking, it highlights a terrifying vulnerability in how medical research is funded and disseminated.
How so?
The cost of running a massive global clinical trials is astronomical. If a treatment cannot generate a massive return on investment to cover those costs and please shareholders, the incentive to study it, promote it, or even acknowledge it simply evaporates.
It just disappears.
Yeah. The dossiers claim that a natural bypass exists, but was suppressed to protect a multi-billion-dollar monopoly, forces us to question the filters through which we receive our health information.
It forces us to question everything about how medical consensus is built. I mean, let's just briefly recap the incredible journey of this intercepted broadcast from the static bypass network.
It's been a lot of ground to cover.
It really has. We started with the alleged suppression of mainstream media by pharmaceutical ad dollars. We unpacked the terrifying biological mechanisms of muscle apoptosis and the resulting mechanical failure of bone density.
The fragility factor.
Right, which the dossier claims was engineered specifically to create lifelong dependency and collapse our metabolic independence. And finally, we explored the buried promise of the berberine protocol, a natural metabolic switch deemed too unprofitable to see the light of day.
It is a profound amount of complex biology and economics to synthesize. And, as a final reminder, our role today has been to serve as your guides through the claims made in this specific March 15th leak.
Absolutely.
We are exploring the fascinating ideas within the document without declaring them as absolute, undeniable truth. There's always more to learn, and maintaining a critical, questioning perspective is essential when dealing with claims of this magnitude.
We aren't telling you what to believe. We are just showing you what the dossier says. But I want to leave you with a final lingering thought to ponder on your own as you go about your day.
Okay.
We started this deep dive talking about medical miracles versus biological traps.
Yeah.
If our modern health economy is truly built on a financial framework that heavily incentivizes lifelong, managed treatment over permanent cures, how many other fundamental, life-changing breakthroughs in human history might currently be sitting in a dark, locked filing cabinet simply because they were unpatentable?
That is a very sobering question.
It really is. Something to think about. Until next time, keep questioning the static.